Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Trade Ops Radio podcast. Today, I'm joined by Ayan. Sir, I will let you introduce yourself if you can. Just give us kind of the who you are, what you do, and kind of the brief rundown of maybe your history and kind of what's brought you to the present moment.
Okay, well, my name is Ayan Gonzalez, or Ayan Gonzalez in English. Either way is fine. I've been in the trades for approximately 45 years now. I've been self-employed in the trades since the age of 18. I'm 64. I currently hold 18 licenses and certifications specifically related to the trades, and more specifically related to remediation, decontamination, insurance claims. I started out as a drywall contractor in my early years, progressed into a interiors build-out contractors where I would build out malls, Fredericks of Hollywood, Radio Shacks, Burger Kings. Progressed to general contracting. And then in 1992, I was doing custom homes and got hit by Hurricane Andrew. And that pretty much destroyed my house and everybody in my family's house. That's when I got introduced into insurance work. And since then, I've been specializing in it. And for some time, I was a emergency operations contractor with FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers, where I would go in after the hurricanes and tarp houses and protect homes from mold and contamination. And I would bring in heavy equipment to clear roads so that the emergency people can come in and access the damaged areas. So right now, I'm still specializing in mitigation, restoration, emergency services, and I have another company which is a handyman company. And then I'm doing also some development where I'll buy a lot, build on it, rent out the properties, buy a lot, build on it, rent out the property. So pretty much that's what I'm into.
Cool. Right on. If we go all the way back to the beginning with the drywalling and stuff, what kind of got you into that world?
Originally, when I was in school, I started going to college, and I was intending to be a retail guy. I was into sporting goods, so I wanted to have my own sporting goods store. Eventually, that's what I was working towards. And then something happened when I was working for a guy. They had a sporting goods company and a sporting goods store, and they hired me to manage it, to be like a manager for the sporting goods department. And something happened where the owner of the store chewed out a cashier, and I had a problem with the way he was speaking to her. So I confronted him with him, and I said, "Hey, look, I don't understand why you have to do that in front of the customers. Why you have to degrade her? Why don't you just pull her aside?" And so he basically looked at me right in the face and he said, "Let me tell you something. This is my store, and if you don't like it, leave." So something happened. I don't know if it was spiritual or a conniption, but something happened that triggered something in me, and I left, and I just had an epiphany that I'm never going to work for anybody for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to let anyone talk down to me like that, and I don't care what it's going to take, but I'm gonna do this on my own. So, as a young boy, I would help my dad, who was a butcher, and he would come home and he would do handyman work, and I would pull the nails and do the cleaning and the sweeping, and I hated the trades. I never ever envisioned myself being in the trades. But I was unemployed, and the very first Home Depot had just opened up in Miami. And I was walking out of the Home Depot one day, and I noticed they used to put a bulletin board where people would put business cards and things, and you can pick it out. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I noticed that somebody had put something up, and it said ceiling fan installation, $35. And I said to myself, well, hell, I can do that. Going minimum wage at the time was like $3.50 an hour, $4 an hour, and $35. That's quick money. So I put up a little sign. The next day I got a call, and I installed my first ceiling fan. And I said, "Whoa, this is good." And then I did another ceiling fan. And, oh, this is good, you know. And I learned how to install ceiling fan from my dad. So then one day, this guy calls me. He says, "I need you to do a ceiling fan." I go do it, and then he says, "Can you do the one in the next room?" I said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "Well, do you know how to hang a door?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I'd never hung a door before. And long story short, that's how I got into it. And then at nighttime, I started going to night school, and where they had an engineer by the name of Morton Schultz, who became my first mentor in the trades. And he was teaching a class on how to get a general contractor's license. So he would prepare you for the contractor's exam. And I said, well, I'm going to do that. So I started doing that, and I got to know Morton. And then it was a funny thing, because while I was in the class, at the time I was around maybe 20 years old. And the other people in the class were architects, engineers, you know, people that are in their 40s and early 50s looking to get their GC license. And I just wanted to get my license. And I would raise my hand and ask questions, and people would laugh at the questions I would ask, because these are things that you're supposed to know. Morton pulled me aside and said, "Hey, don't worry about it. Just keep pushing. You're going to be fine. You're looking for the answers. Keep pushing." So I did. So one day I went to Morton. I said, "Morton, I'm ready to open my own business. What do you recommend?" Now, if he had said plumbing or electrical or roofer, I would have done whatever he told me, because I trusted him. And he said, "Well, get into drywall." I said, "Okay." So I got into drywall. And I said, "Well, how do you do that?" He says, "Well, first you got to learn how to hang drywall." "Well, how do you do that?" So, "Well, go to a job site, find a drywall contractor, and ask them to let you hang drywall." And I did that. So I did that for about 2 or 3 months, and I learned how to hang drywall. So I went back to Morton, and I said, "Okay, Morton, what do I do now? I want to open my business." He said, "Well, do you know how to finish drywall?" "No." "Well, go find a job and start learning how to do finishing." I said, "Okay." So I did that for about 2, 3 months. And in the trades, I mean, once you learn how to paint, or once you learn how to frame, or once you learn how to hang drywall, it's like, that's it. I mean, what's the next step? It's like, where are we going from here? Mm-hmm. So I went back to Morton. I said, "Okay, I got it. What do I do next?" "Well, do you know how to frame?" I said, "No, I don't know how to frame." He says, "Okay, well, go." So that went on for about 8 or 9 months. And I came back to him, and I said, "Okay, Morton, I know how to frame. I know how to hang. I know how to finish. Now what do I have to do?" He says, "Well, do you think you're ready?" I said, "Well, yeah, okay, so you've been doing some hanging and some finishing and some, yeah, okay. You want to have your own company?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Okay, here's what you're going to do, but you got to do exactly what I tell you. If you do what I tell you, you'll be successful. If you don't, I'm not going to help you." I said, "Okay, fair enough." So I asked him, "What do I do next?" He says, "Okay, do you have a bunch of tools?" I said, "Yeah, I got a lot of tools." He said, "Well, do you have a good storage shed?" I said, "Well, my dad's got a storage shed behind the house." "Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take all your tools, put them in the storage shed, put them nice and organized on shelving, label them, get everything in inventory, clean it out, and then get the best lock you can find, the strongest lock you can find, lock that storage shed, and then come back to class next Monday." So that weekend, I spent a good 16, 18 hours over the weekend clearing out the storage shed, throwing everything out, putting my tools, cleaning the tools, oiling everything. And I was ready to go Monday. That's it. I got Morton to teach me. I'm ready to go. Mm-hmm. So I go to the class. And I said, "Okay, Morton, I did what you said. Now what do I need to do to get my company going?" He says, "Well, are you ready?" I said, "Yeah." "Okay, all right. Where's the keys for the storage shed?" I said, "Well, I got them right here." He said, "Well, let me have them." Okay, so I hand them to him. And he puts it in his pocket. And he says, "Okay, now go do drywall." And I looked at him and I said, "What do you mean, now go do drywall?" He says, "Well, you wanted to be a drywall contractor, right? You wanted to own your own business." "Yeah." "Okay, well, go do drywall." "Well, how am I going to do that, Morton? I don't have any tools." "Well, you got to hire people, and they're going to use their tools." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, you got to now hire people, and you got to go and you got to give estimates, and that's how you start your business." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, Morton, I'm not going to make any money if I do that." He says, "Well, why is that?" He says, well, when I give a price, I'm doing the work myself, and I got maybe a helper, you know, how am I going to get work?" He says, "Well, you're going to charge more." I said, "But I'm not going to get any work." So no, actually you are. So I did that. I started doing that, and I didn't know it at the time, but Morton was an estimator for a drywall contractor. So he comes to me after about 2 months. He was sending me little jobs. These people did 10-story buildings, 20-story buildings. They don't do single houses and stuff. So he sent them to me. And then he said to me, he says, Ayan, do you think you're ready? Do you think you know what you're doing? I said, well, yeah, Morton, I think I do. He says, okay, well, you ready for the next step? I said, yeah. He says, well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to hire me, and you're going to pay me $72,000 a year. I said, what? I didn't make that. $72,000. Well, that's what I need you to pay me. You need to pay me $72,000 a year. Do you trust me? I said, well, yeah, Morton, I trust me, but what the hell are you talking about? He says, well, I want you to go find an office space where I can go work. This guy's shutting down his business because he's not running it right. And I'm the estimator, and I know who all the contacts are. So I'm going to bring them in, and I'm going to get you to work. I'm going to estimate it, and I'm going to tell you what to go charge. So I was like, I was so scared out of my mind. I didn't know what to do. But I trusted Morton, and he says, okay, let's go. So he says, all right, very well. So I want you to go to this location next Tuesday, and I want you to pick up a set of drawings. So I went to this big contractor, one of the biggest contractors in the city. And I said, hey, I'm here to pick up a set of drawings. Oh, you're the drywall guy. I said, yeah. Okay, so he gives me a set of drawings. I give it to Morton. He puts a price together, and it comes out to like $210,000 to do the firewalls for the federal building in downtown Miami. The largest job I had done was maybe $4,000 or $5,000 at that time. Yeah. And he's giving me a set of drawings for a $210,000 job. So he sits there for a week. Back then, we didn't have computers. We didn't have, we had a little calculator with a little tape thing, and he would do it on a little spreadsheet paper. We didn't have anything, fax machines, beepers, or cell phones. Everything was done manually. So he spent about a week on those drawings, and he said, okay, $210,000. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go see this guy, and you're going to tell him $175,000. What? He says, yeah, you're going to tell him $175,000 so we can get the contract. I said, Morton, how am I going to do it for $175,000? The job is $210,000. I got overhead and profit of maybe 30 or 40, so I'm doing it below cost. How am I going to be able to do this and make a profit? He says, you trust me? I said, yes, Morton, I trust you. He says, then you do what I'm telling you to do. I say, so I went and did it. The guy says, okay, no problem. We'll have a contract for you next Monday. So I go pick up the contract, and I'm scared out of my mind. But I signed it. I trusted Morton. So I said, Morton, do you trust me? I said, yes, Morton, I trust you, but I don't know. This is crazy. So we start the job, and we get a week into the job, and I get a phone call. Mr. Gonzalez, we need you to come to our office. We have a set of drawings for you to bid for us. I said, okay. So I go over there, and the guy hands me a stack of drawings. I mean, it weighed like 25 pounds. The original price that I gave him was for the federal building, which was a government contract with the GSA, and it was for the firewalls, the hallways, the corridors. Now he hands me the drawings for 16 stories, all the partitions. It was $3.5 million. I handed it to Morton. Morton priced it out. We got the contract. And I learned a valuable lesson there, that if you want to be successful in this industry, one of the things you have to do is you have to find a good mentor and listen to the mentor. And as scared as you are, if you have a good mentor, he'll guide you. So that turned into a successful drywall company with 85 employees, which I eventually turned into an interior build-out contractor, which eventually turned into a general contractor, which eventually ran into insurance work. And now I do consulting. I'm an expert witness. I do insurance work. So it's just a progressive thing. It's like a stair step. You start installing ceiling fans, and then as time goes by, you progress and you learn new skills, and then you add them to your dossier or your resume, and then you start expanding. And so now I retired back in 2006. And then I was bored out of my mind, and I came back a year later, and I just started up again just to stay busy, because I thought I was gonna be having fun in retirement, and I was bored. So I
Yeah.
came back, and now I do what I do, and I have fun. And if I don't enjoy it, I tell you, screw you. I don't need you as a client. If we don't have agreeable terms, I'm out of here. I don't need the work. And ever since I didn't need the work, I've got so much work, I don't know what to do with it.
Mm.
It's hard to explain, but that's how it actually works.
Yeah. And you're doing it because you want to, not because you have to. So like you said, you can take the pick of the litter if you want and just kind of be a little more selective about, who or what you work with and what you do. So
Yeah. You're sharing this with a lot of newbies, a lot of veterans. All right. Well, let me share a little story that I think will help your people. Okay. And this is a story that I learned, I don't know, it was maybe 30 years ago. And when I heard the story, it kind of put everything together for me on what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. And basically, it's a story of this little old man who lives on an island. And this guy walks on vacation along the island shore, and he sees this little old man. And the old man has these huge, giant bamboo trees. And these bamboo trees, they're like 80 feet high, 80 feet tall. So the guy's fascinated, and he says to the old man, "Wow, these things are beautiful. Can I maybe buy one from you? I'd love to have one of these in my house." And the old man looks at him and he says, "Oh, no problem." And he hands him this little 6-inch bamboo shoot. He says, "Just take this, and let me tell you what you need to do. Every day, no matter what happens, I want you to water it, and I want you to fertilize it. No matter what happens, do this every single day. And if you do that, you'll see it's all going to work out, and you're going to get a beautiful tree like I have." So the guy's all excited. He takes the tree home, plants it in his backyard, and then he starts to water it every day, and he fertilizes it every day. So then about a week passes, and he goes out, and he's like, "Man, I don't see anything happening here. It's like, okay, well, all right, I'll just keep doing what the old man says." So a month passes, and he's watering and fertilizing it every day, and he look at it, and he's, "What's going on here? I don't see this. This plant is not growing. It's not moving. What's going on?" So he just, okay, I'll just keep doing what the old man said. 6 months later, he looks at it, and it's still the same thing. And he's thinking to himself, "What's the use? Why? I don't get it. But the plant's not dead. It's still alive, but it's just not growing. So I'll just keep doing what the old man says." So then a year passes. And right when he hits 365 days, he goes out to water and fertilize the plant, and he looks, and all of a sudden this thing's 80 feet tall, and it just grew 80 feet overnight.
mm.
And then it's like, holy crap. So what's the moral of the story? This story is a story that pretty much changed my life in what it really means. And here's what it basically meant. This story is comparable to having a business. Okay? You look at it, and you're saying to yourself, nothing's happening. I'm not, keep working. Just keep pushing. Keep working at it. Keep working at it. But I'm not getting anywhere. It's like, and you think to yourself, something was happening, but you didn't see it. The bamboo plant was growing underground. It was spreading its root system. It was growing underground, but you couldn't see it. Had he planted this plant and it grew 80 feet within a month, the first wind that comes by would have knocked it over. But the plant knew what it had to do. It grew a big foundation. It grew a strong foundation. And then it shoots up 80 feet. And now a hurricane will hit it, and it'll survive the hurricane. This is how business works. When you read a book, that's another root that shoots out. When you listen to a podcast like this, that's another root that shoots out. Every time you do something, no matter how little you think it is, it's another root, it's another stem, it's another little piece that comes out, And you think to yourself, man, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm working so hard, and I'm not getting anywhere. But then all of a sudden, one day, an opportunity comes. And that's exactly what happened to me in my business. I worked hard at my business for years. And then one day, Morton came around, and the opportunity was there. And the root system was there. I knew how to hang. I knew how to frame. I knew how to do my accounting. I knew the basics. I knew what I had to do to run my business. I've been doing it for a few years, and I'm like, man, I'm not getting anywhere. And all of a sudden, boom. However, eventually, because I was inexperienced, Morton passed away shortly after we started the project. And I was inexperienced, and I got taken advantage of by some contractors, and I lost everything. And I had to start all over again. But I took everything that I learned from Morton, everything that I learned, and I kept reading, and I kept studying, and I kept listening and talking to other people. And every time I talked to somebody new, every time I read a new book, it made my base stronger. And that's how this industry is. This industry will starve you. But if you stay in and you keep pushing and you keep learning every day, regardless, your base will run and it'll get bigger and bigger. And then one day somebody came to me and I'm looking for somebody to build 150 homes. I needed somebody I can do that for you. All it is build one house 150 times. Mm-hmm. And there you go. Boom. That was the end of it. And then that led to other things and other opportunities. But because I had the root system, because I had the foundation, I was able to accept the growth that was coming. Everybody gets anxious and they get discouraged because, look, man, my subcontractor has a better pickup truck than I do. That's not cool. So people get discouraged. I don't care what pickup truck the guy has. I have my goal. I have my place that I'm going, and I know where I'm headed. So that is a good analogy to what it is to have a business. So you want to give yourself about 5 years. If you're gonna open a handyman business or air conditioning business, whatever you want to open, give yourself 5 years and commit to it for 5 years, and things will come your way. They will. But you'll be able to seize the moment because you will have the foundation, you'll have the root system to support the growth that will eventually come. You'll have the knowledge, the experience. If you're a 20-year-old guy and you open your business and you think you're going to do $5 million in the next 3-4 years, you're going to be out of business shortly. Mm. You have to pay your dues. You have to learn the steps. You have to grind and grind and grind, and eventually the opportunity will come. In this industry, you don't just make $10,000 this year, $20,000 next year, $40,000. You struggle and all of a sudden 1 year you make $500,000 and you don't know what to do with yourself. Mm. And then the next year you make $50,000 again. And like where I'm at in Florida, I'm in Central Florida. Okay, so sure. We're busy all year, but then we get a hurricane. Mm. And when we get a hurricane, it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. There's so much money and so much work out there, you don't know what to do with it. And then it dies down. And then everybody's struggling again. And then you get a hurricane. You live in the Midwest, it might be a tornado. It might be a hailstorm. It might be a heat wave, a frost. Mm. That's how this industry generally works. You might have an investor with a lot of money and he needs somebody to run it for him. So anyway, in regards to the running of a business, remember the bamboo plant. Me estoy en vivo. So that's pretty much the way you want to think if you want to be successful in business. Don't get discouraged. Don't get don't lose the faith. But every day you have to do the 1%. It's called the 1% rule. Every day, just do 1%. You don't have to do everything in one day. Just do 1% every day. 1% every day. Come hell or high water. Whether it's read a book or listen to another podcast or talk to some mentor or go estimate a job or whatever it is you need to do. And then as time goes by, you will develop your niche. Now, my niche, people can't believe. But it took me, I've been doing this for 45 years, and it took me decades to learn my niche. Mm. I'm in a niche where I have not bid a job for 30 years. And people can't understand that. I'm a general contractor. And I get work without estimating, without giving a bid. People, how could you get a job without getting a bid? I do it all the time. It's incredibly simple, but it's not. It took me years to learn how to do that. But I'll get work without bidding. It, 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 it's doable, especially in the business that I'm in. Okay. I mean, the business that I'm in, why did I go into this particular business is because this particular section of the trades is not affected by seasons. It's not affected by the economy. It's not affected by who gets elected for president, because every day somebody's toilet overflows, somebody's kitchen catches fire, somebody's house gets hit by lightning, somebody's roof leaks. Every day something happens, whether we have a good economy or a bad economy, it doesn't matter. No, doesn't matter. In the trades where you're dealing with restoration, remediation, everybody gets mold, everybody gets a contaminated house. So it's a niche. Now, a lot of you people are AC people. Okay, so you have your seasons. You have your season when you're when you're doing in the summer, you're doing a lot of service work. In the winter, you're not so busy. So you synergize. In the summer, we're doing a lot of AC work. And then in the winter, when it's slow, we do handyman work to fill in and keep the employees, to keep them busy. One of the things that I do to keep my good employees is I'll buy a piece of property for 30 or 40 grand and I'll build a small house on it, 1,200 square foot house. But I'll build it slowly. When my guys don't have something to do next Thursday, I'll send them to go work on the house. So I keep them employed. Or I might buy a double wide mobile home that's all destroyed, and I'll fix that up to rent it. And I just keep it there. And then when the guys don't have work, hey guys, go work on the electrical in the house. Or when the season gets low, if we have a rain day and we're doing work outside, they go hang the drywall. And you come up with ways and things as you progress, and you learn how to fill the voids that you have. Now, something I've been in Facebook a lot, and I hear a lot of people. One of the things that I'll say is that, look, guys, I'm the most expensive guy in the job, yet I beat you at the job. People don't understand, how is it possible that you're the most expensive guy, yet you get the work? You bid the work at $20,000. They got a bid for 18, but they give you the work. How is that possible? Well, because I do what no one else does. We clean up after ourselves. We wear uniforms. Our trucks are clean. Our people are professional. They speak properly. When they go into somebody's house, they put booties on their shoes. Something as simple as that will outsell your client. Before I walk into your house, if I'm going to go look in your attic or I'm going to go look at your kitchen fire, I'll put booties on my shoes. Nobody does that. So what does the customer say? Wow, these guys are, they're wanting to protect my house. You do little things like that you stand out, and before you know it, you get the job, even though you're the more expensive guy. People that are inexperienced, they're out there and they're trying to bid the lowest price they can. That's not how you make it in this industry. Okay. If you want to buy a cheeseburger at McDonald's for $4, you can do that. Or you can go to Five Guys and you can buy a cheeseburger for $12. Or you can go to a nice high-class fancy restaurant and you can buy a cheeseburger for $65. There's a market for each one. I'm not interested in targeting little Miss McGillicuddy that lives in a trailer living off of Social Security. That's not my target market. I leave that for the guys that don't know what they're doing and they want to bid things as low as they can. So where do I go? There's areas in Miami where homes are $40, $50 million. There's areas where I live in Central Florida where homes are $20, $30 million. There's condos that are $500,000. Then we also have the trailers that are, the trailer park where retirees that live off Social Security. I don't target the trailer with the Social Security. I target the people that can afford to pay what I charge, that can afford to pay, what I service. And I leave everything else for everybody else. We are in a roughly $160 billion a year industry. I don't need that much work. If I just get $1 million of work a year, if I'm working on a roughly, give or take, 30 to 40% profit margin, I don't need that much work to make a good living. But I've paid my dues. I've spent the time, and I've learned my industry up, down, left, right, back and forth, to where I can see where the profit is, and I can target. So your people that are listening to this, one of the best things you could do is find a good mentor. And the best ones are free. Okay, right here, I'm talking to you right now. I'm not charging anybody anything. I'm just sharing the experiences that I've had, because one of the things that happens as you become more and more successful in this industry is it's not about the money anymore. It doesn't motivate you. You start getting motivated when you see other people succeed. And if you can help throw a rope to somebody and help them succeed, that gives you a type of gratification that you don't get from money. And it might be difficult for people to understand that when they're in a difficult financial situation. But once you have it, you realize that's really not what it's about. It's really about the relationships and the employees and having the free time. You know, so every decision you make is going to either make you money or cost you money. So when you wake up in the morning, if you decide to go to work, you're going to make money. If you decide not to, you won't. If you brush your teeth, you're spending money. When you flush the toilet, you got to pay the water bill. When you take a shower, you got to pay for soap. When you go to eat, you got to pay. So every single thing you do in any given moment, in any given day, is either going to make you money or it's going to cost you money. You have to decide, what is it that I'm going to do today? Am I going to be spending money? Or, okay, I'm going to go buy a new truck. Okay, I had to buy a box truck for the company about 3-4 years ago. I went to Isuzu and I looked at the box truck that I liked, and had a nice side door, big lift in the back, $98,000. I said, I don't know, let me see. I went to Ritchie Brothers auction. I found the same truck. It was about 9 or 10 years old. I bought it for $18,000 cash. I drove it straight to the mechanic, put a brand new engine for $13,000. That truck's been running for the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years since I've had it. And I've spent $35,000 or so. And it runs just as good as that brand new one. Same thing with when I see these guys driving around with these brand new $80,000, $90,000 pickup trucks, I just laugh. It's the first opportunity the guy gets to make some good money, he spends it on a $1,400 a month payment. That's not smart thinking. Every decision you make is either going to make you money or it's going to cost you money. And when you understand that, you start making the right decisions to take you where you want to go. So I know I've been rambling on, but I'm trying to just share as much information as I can. Not so much on the money end, and not so much on the specific to any particular trade, but just a way of thinking, a way of seeing the things you do. And that's actually where the profit is. When you think the right way, you make the right decisions, and you start heading in the right direction.
100%.
And this is a tough industry. Statistically, more than 50% of the people that get into the trades, their companies fail within 5 years. I used to teach contractors a class I used to do about 20 years ago. It was called Overhead and Profit. And at the beginning of the class, I would have like maybe 30 or 40 people in the class. And I would ask the contractors in their class, I would say, how many of you guys know how to renovate a kitchen? Everybody would raise their hand. How many of you guys know how to build a 1-story house? Everybody would raise their hand. Well, how many of you guys can do a 3-story building, maybe half the class would raise their hand. Okay. Well, how many of you guys know how to build a business? I never had anybody raise their hand to that question. Yet that is the most important thing you have to learn to be successful in the trades, whether it's a contractor, subcontractor, plumbing contractor, it doesn't matter. You need to learn not how to build houses. You need to learn how to build your business. If you want to build houses, come and work for me. I'll let you build as many houses as you want for the rest of your life. I'll give you a decent salary, and man, you'll be happy for the rest of your life. And all you do is build houses. Now, if you want to be successful and if you want to make real money in this industry, you got to learn how to build a business. That's the part that contractors don't understand, and that's why so many contractors fail. When I was a drywall contractor, I learned quick. You don't want to be a sub. If 50% of the contractors fail within 5 years, these are the people I'm signing contracts with. Half of the people I'm going to do business with are going to fail within 5 years. The people that I taught on the classes that would not raise their hand when I asked them how to rebuild a business, those are the people that you're signing contracts with when you're a subcontractor. So these people that don't know how to run a business are controlling the money. And then every Friday you got to sit there and you got to wait. Oh my God, why isn't he answering my phone call? Where's my check? And then you got 5 or 6 employees or 50 employees waiting on their payroll, and you can't cover the payroll. So then you got to go and borrow money. And you got to do this. No, that's not how you make it in this industry. So you want to try and be in a position where you control the money. I see on Facebook people often post, hey, how can I get financing? I need to borrow some money because I got this project. No, that's not how you make it in this industry. The carpenter's tool is the hammer. The electrician's tool is a screwdriver. The plumber's tool is the wrench. The contractor's tool is cash. Okay? The reason you're called a contractor is because you contract. These people out there that you see swinging a hammer that call themselves contractors, they're not contractors. They're supervisors. They're working supervisors. They might own the company, but they're working supervisors, or they're carpenters, or they're roofers because that's what they're doing that day. Or maybe they're painters because that's what they're doing that day. A contractor's tool is cash. If my customer does not give me the cash to work with on their house, I walk. So when I deal with a client and I give them a price and we come to an agreement or whatever it is that happens, okay, I need a $20,000 deposit to begin work. Oh, but look, if you want to give me $5,000, no problem. I'll do $5,000 of the work, and then I'm going to stop. I need the cash because that's the tool that I need to do the job. The name of my company is Empire Mitigation, Restoration, and Consulting. It's not Empire Financing, Empire Loans, Empire Banking, no, Empire Credit. No, it's Empire Construction. And I construct with your money. So a lot of these guys, especially the newbies, they put out their money to buy the materials for the job. No, I need a deposit. And if you don't give me the deposit, I walk. It's simple. I would rather stay home feeding my chickens and petting my dog than be chasing somebody for a check. Then I got to go lean on their house, and then I got to do this, and I got to do that. These are things that you learn when you deal with a good mentor. He teaches you these things. So I do not bid work. I give you a copy of my resume with all my licenses and certifications, and I tell you, listen, call the state, verify these licenses, make sure I'm legit. Here's a couple of customers that I've done work for in the past. If you want me to do this house for you, I charge 8% to do the estimate. What? Nobody else charges it. Well, nobody else has the licenses and certifications that I do, and nobody else is as professional as I am. I will charge 8% of what it costs. So if your house comes out to $200,000, I'm going to charge $16,000 to do the estimate. So then what do? I do what nobody else does. I do the estimate, but I don't say drywall, $15,000. Plumbing, $8,000. I say 75 sheets of drywall, hang $12 a board. Material, $17. Finish, $12 a board. Framing, $18 a foot, or whatever it is. Painting, 75 cents a square foot. Baseboard, $1 a foot. Door, $275 per door. I give them a detailed estimate that has maybe 900 line items, 15 or 20 pages long. And then I say to them, now look, I understand that I'm the most expensive guy. But if you look at my estimate, anything that you think you could do yourself, just let me know and I'll cross it off. If you want to do the painting yourself, no problem. You can save $9,000. I'll do everything else. You do the painting. If you want to do the grass, you do the grass. If you want to throw away the materials, dump it to the, if you don't want me to bring in a dumpster and you want to take it in your pickup truck to the local landfill, great. When you go to the grocery store or when you go to the Home Depot and you go to the cashier, if you're buying a furring strip, or if you're buying a pound of nails, or if you're buying a hammer, if you're buying a 2x4, you take it to the cash register and they give you a receipt. And everything is line item. So many 2x4s, so many sheets of drywall, so many buckets of mud. That's how I treat my client. And then I show it to them. And then on the side, this is my overhead and profit. So the job cost is $18,000, we'll say. And I have overhead and profit of, let's say, $40,000. So $20,000 overhead, $20,000 profit. So the job cost is about $16,000. Now, listen, if you think you can get the kitchen cabinets done cheaper by somebody else, I'm more than happy to remove that, and we'll bring in your guy. But I got to make sure he's licensed and insured, and he's got workers' comp and all that, you know. And then you have to sign a release saying that if something goes wrong with the cabinets, I'm not held responsible. See, I'm controlling the job. I'm using an open book policy. When I go in there and my estimate is $240,000, somebody else comes in at 180, 190, but they give them a 1 or 2 page estimate. They look at mine, and then I just say, listen, you got make sure that they're including the flashing, and make sure that they're including this and that. And I'm telling you, it works. People give me the work because I'm so detailed and precise. But I don't bid work. So I will meet you. A typical client has a kitchen fire. They'll have 2 or 3 contractors, and they'll come in and they'll give them one will give them a price for 30. This is what happens in this industry. One guy will give them a price of 30 grand, another one says 40 grand, another one says 60 grand. I come in and I say, I will do the job for whatever the insurance company pays, minus your deductible. That's it. That's my price. Well, what do you mean? I need to know how much it costs. It's going to cost whatever the insurance company pays. Once you sign my contract, I will create a scope of work and I will submit it to the insurance company. And that's it. That's what I'm going to do the job for. Well, but how much? Well, I explained to them very, very simply. Well, Mr. Homeowner, here's how it works. Suppose you have a car accident and you have a Lexus and somebody hits the side of your car. Okay. Well, now the insurance guy comes out and he says, hey, take it to Billy Bob's repair shop and we'll get it fixed for you. No problem. You have a choice because you control the claim. It's your house. They can't just bring in whoever they want. So now you have a choice. You can take the car to the Billy Bob repair shop where they'll fix it for $10,000, or you can take it to Lexus, who's going to charge you $21,000, but they're going to give you original Lexus part. It's going to be Lexus certified. It's going to be Lexus mechanics. It's going to be top of the line, and you're going to get it back brand new. Now you get to pick. You can hire Billy Bob for $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000, or you can hire me, not worry about what it costs. I'm going to bill whatever it is to get it done correctly. And if it's supposed to be included in the estimate, they'll pay for it. If it's not, you pay for it. So I get work all the time like that without bidding the work. I just sell them on my experience. I sell them on my licenses, my certifications, and I tell them I will do the work for what the insurance company pays. So let's say an AC guy, an AC guy comes in and we want you to clean our ducts. people are fighting to get to the lowest price, to give the cheapest price. Well, that's not how I do it. You know? You want us to clean your ducts? Well, we need to first go in there and do an assessment. So let me bring in a mold assessor. A licensed mold assessor will come in and he'll do an assessment. He'll do a protocol report and he'll tell us what needs to be done, whether it needs to be this, whether it needs to be that, whether it needs to be that. So here, call this guy and he'll check it. And then when we're done, he'll recheck it and make sure that it's done correctly. And by the way, we don't use biocides. All these other AC guys, they use biocides. Well, why don't I use biocides? Because the industry standards of care, the IICRC S500, Paris 520, says that you don't use biocides when you're dealing with mold or contamination. So we do it chemical free. I sell the hell out of it, and it's all truth. And the competition's coming in there. Oh, we charge $13 per vent, and people see the difference in the quality, and they pay for it. That they're willing to pay for it. So, as a general rule, the most important thing that your people can get, I would say, is be consistent. Every day, do the 1%. Remember the bamboo plant. Constantly learning something new, a new podcast, a new book, a new person, a new whatever. Every day doing something new, and let that root system grow. And then one day an opportunity will come and you'll be able to seize the moment and you'll succeed. I know I drank down a lot, but you can tell I do. I don't mind sharing this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And, usually I gotta constantly be asking questions to kind of just keep the conversation going. But when someone like yourself just hops on and is ready to spill the knowledge, I'll sit back, be quiet, and open my ears as well and listen and let you speak, because you have a lot of great things to say. If we got time for it, two things that I'm really curious about.
Sure.
You've talked a lot about the things to do right to increase your chances of success. Can you talk about the time that you mentioned where you got kind of screwed over and had to start from scratch, and what the mistake was that was made there, and how someone else could avoid that particular situation from happening, and maybe what you need to think about if you're in a position like that where you're forced to basically rebuild from a clean slate? And then the second thing I'm really curious about is, let's say that I am a successful contractor, I do the right things that you're talking about, and now I've got a little bit of money. How do I keep it, invest it, and get to a point where I can be like you and work because I want to and I love what I do, instead of I have to because, I got bills due at the end of the month? And you had mentioned that, you're into some real estate stuff, some mobile homes or trailer park things, and like, not only does that obviously benefit you financially, but also from a business point of view, like you said, a very, very common question that we get is like, what do I do in the off season, or how do I keep guys busy? How do I, retain my key employees? So I'd love to kind of touch on those two things, and just dive a little deeper into that. I guess starting with the time that you pretty much had to start over. We can
Okay,
go
you'll have to
deeper into
remind
that.
me the other questions
Yeah.
after I finish answering this one. First of all, I don't want anybody to get the impression that I'm the guru, Yahweh bin Yahweh, God of construction. I've been screwed so many times by so many angles that you can't screw me anymore, because I've gotten screwed. Okay, now I know not to do that. And then I got screwed over there. Oh, I know not to do that. So to answer your question regarding the first one, the first time I was doing that federal building, and it was like $3-something million worth of work. And we were coming to the end of the job, and I had at the time 28 men. This is 1990, 89, 90, 91, in that time frame. I was paying my guys $25, $30 an hour back then. This was a federal contract. So that's equivalent to like $60, $70 an hour today. Okay. And I was making some really good money on that job. And we were coming to the end of the job. And then the contractor, the prime, comes to me and says, "Hey, listen, I know I owe you this $180,000, but I'm only going to give you 90." And I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I'm only going to give you 90." I said, "No, no, you're going to give me 180 because that's what I'm owed." So we're coming towards the end of the job. I had bought a house, I had bought another investment property, and I was doing successful because the money I was making on the project, I was putting it on these things. But all of a sudden, we got hit by the economy, and when this happened, interest rates were at about 18%. This was during the late Carter years, where we're going to go into that situation very soon. Again, we're about to hit that cycle again in the next few years. So get ready. But anyway, if you wanted to buy a house, you had to pay 18%, 19%. That's how bad it was. And I had made the mistake at that time, because I was a subcontractor, of financing the job. So when the guy didn't pay me, I had to go to my local bank, who I had a good relationship with, and I said, "Listen, I need a credit line on one of my houses, which I own free and clear, and so I can cover my payroll until this guy pays me." So I got a credit line. Big mistake. I would never have done that now, but I had to cover my payroll, and I had to pay my materials. Big mistake. If the contractor doesn't pay me, I'm not going to pay the vendors. And then what happens is I get to sue the contractor, and the vendors get to partner with me to sue them. Well, because I went to the trouble of getting financing from my house, I paid the payroll, which had to be paid, but I didn't have enough money to pay the payroll taxes, and I and I paid the vendors because I wanted to keep a good relationship with the vendors. So now I'm screwed, because now I owe. It went on for about 4 to 6 weeks, where this guy didn't give me the check, and I was really tight, and I had to use that to cover my payroll and to pay the vendors. So then, when he didn't give me the check and he wanted me to do it for less, I said no. So I had to get an attorney. And this is where I learned the first valuable lesson that I learned. The attorney looked at me and he said, "Ayan," I went to him and I said, "Look, I got everything. I got signed contracts. I got this. I got that. Everything's in black and white. I got pictures. There's no way in hell this guy's not going to pay me. This is a federal contract. I need to be paid. And there's a bond on the job. And so I'm getting paid." He says, "Ayan, you're going to learn the first lesson of business today." And I said, "Well, what's that?" He says, "A contract is only as good as the two people that sign it." And he was right. You could put whatever you want on a contract, but if the client is looking to screw you, he'll screw you. "Oh, I'm going to put a lien on your house." I can run circles around anyone if you want to try and put a lien on my house, because before you even sign the contract, you don't know that I went to my brother, and let's say I had a house that was worth $300,000, and I have a $100,000 mortgage. So I got $200,000 in equity. Before I signed the contract with the contractor, I went to my brother and I said, "Hey, buddy, sign this. What's that?" "Well, this is a mortgage. I'm giving you a second mortgage on my property." So then he signs it. I go to the courthouse. I spend $10. I post the mortgage. Now I owe my brother $200,000. Now I don't pay you, the contractor, and then you say you're going to lien my house. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Lien my house. People don't understand. If somebody wants to screw you, they're going to screw you. So you have to do whatever you have to do to protect yourself. You have to know how to cross all your T's and dot your I's. So what happens? I got these houses. Everything's great. And we get hit by Hurricane Andrew, 1992. Okay. So now the bank that I borrowed the money from, they changed managers. There's all kinds of shit that happens in this industry that you never know what's going to come from. So you got to be ready for anything. They changed managers. The new manager comes in and says, "Hey, and that $80,000 credit line that we put on your house, I need you to put the $80,000 back." The bank went under, got taken over by the feds, and the feds came in and said, "Hey, we don't give out credit lines anymore. We want the money back." So now I got to bring the money back. And I didn't have it. So they start foreclosure on my house, right? So then hurricane hits. It hadn't foreclosed yet. The insurance company says, okay, we're going to give you, I think it was $90,000. I go to the bank and I say, hey, I got the money, the $80,000 you wanted. I call the bank and I talk to the assistant for the bank president. And she says, oh, Mr. So-and-so is going to call you back in the next day or two. I said, okay, so a week passes and he doesn't call me. Oh, Mr. So-and-so is going to call you back. He's been very busy because it's the hurricane, this and this and this. And I call back again and she doesn't answer anymore. They foreclosed on my house. I look in the public records and guess who bought the house at the sheriff's sale at the courthouse? The girl that was answering the phone, who was the secretary for the president of the bank. She was keeping me from getting to him to pay off my mortgage so they didn't foreclose. They were like a week away from closing and I was trying to stop it. You can't make this stuff up.
That's crazy.
So the guy,
Doesn't surprise me though.
so the guy doesn't pay me my $190,000 and I have to hire an attorney. I go to the attorney. He says, okay, we're going to work with you on it. But now the IRS is on my ass because I had 28 men averaging $25, $30 an hour working 60, 70 hours a week on that project. And I didn't cover the payroll for like 6, 8 weeks. So I owed the IRS about $80,000. Okay. So, okay, everything's fine and dandy. You know, when I collect my $200,000 the guy owes me, I'm going to pay off the IRS. So it took 3.5 years in court. And now we're getting ready to go to court the very next day. So the day before we go to court, I get a call from my attorney. Hey, Ayan, the owner of the company wants to talk to you. I said, okay. So I met him at a Burger King. And he says, oh, Mr. Gonzalez, you know, no hard feelings. You know, it's just business. And it isn't. We'll work with you. I'm willing to give you the contract for this 20-story building over here and that one over there, and we'll help you get it back. I said, no. You either give me my $200,000 or I'm going to court tomorrow. But here's what happened. This gets long, but I went to GSA, the headquarters in Atlanta. This was a federal project, so it was public records. So I went to GSA and I looked to see what's going on with my money. Come to find out, they were taking my change orders, and if I had a change order that was $90,000, they were crossing it off and making it like $200,000. They were forging my signature, and they were getting paid by the government. And then they weren't paying me. So that's what I had on these guys. People were going to go to jail. So, long story short, I went to my attorney and said, "Hey, you know, he wanted to do this and then I told him, if you don't give me $200,000, I'm not going." He says, "Hey, and you need to take it because here's the thing: they're huge. They do so many $1 billion a year all over the country. Yeah, we're going to win the case, but then they're going to appeal it, and we're going to be fighting this for the next 8 or 10 years. So." If we go to court, you're going to win. There's no doubt about it. And people are going to jail. But you're not going to get paid. It's going to take forever. So I went ahead and took the $200,000. Oh, it's not over. The IRS, I owed the $80,000. But now, 3.5 years later, I owe them $210,000 because of penalties and interest. So I don't make a damn penny. So I go to the IRS and I say, "Hey guys, we got a problem here. You know, I don't have this." Here's the best part about it. It was a federal building in downtown Miami. It was the IRS headquarters that I was building. So I'm sitting there in the office. I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up. I'm sitting there in the office, and the lady's telling me, "You owe us $80,000 plus the interest and all this crap." And I'm looking at her. I said, "Listen, lady, it's your contractor that didn't pay me. You need to get him to pay me so I can pay. You don't make this stuff up." So what happens? This was like 2 years before we got to the hearing part where I settled with them. So they had put a lien on my house for $80,000. So when I finally get to meet with the lady, she says, well, you need to pay. When I got the 200 grand, I had to pay my attorney. I had to pay a few more suppliers. I didn't have enough money to pay off the IRS. They had put a lien on my house for $80,000. So I went to talk to the lady and I said, listen, we got a problem. So she said, well, you need to pay. I lost it. And I started yelling so much that the security guards came into the room. They were going to arrest me. And she said, she waved them down. She said, no, he's okay. Mr. Gonzalez, just calm down. We'll work this out. So the guys leave, and the lady looks at me and says, hey, and listen, I'm going to tell you something that I'm not supposed to tell you. I don't know if you know, but whenever you go to the IRS office, they always record you. There's a little tiny thing about the size of a business card on the wall that says our conversation is being recorded. She goes and turns off the mic. And she says, Ayan, I'm going to tell you something that I'm retiring next month, so I don't care. I'm going to help you out. And I says, what is it? He says, well, there's a statute of limitations of 10 years. So the $80,000 that you owe that's lien on your house, if you sell your house, we're going to get the $80,000. But if you can last those 10 years, then the statute of limitations will expire and then you don't have to pay the $80,000. So we were now 3-4 years into it. So I had another 6 years to go. And I said, well, thank you. So I didn't pay it. 6 years passed. And then I contacted the IRS and they gave me release of lien. I was able to save it. That's just one of countless times that I've been in situations that you don't know where the hell this is coming from. So don't get the impression that I'm the Yahweh ben Yahweh God of construction. I've been screwed left, right, up, down, in and out so many times. Yeah. But that's how I got to where I'm at now. I just kept pushing and I kept pushing and I kept moving and I kept going. And I lost it 2 or 3 times before I finally made it. You know, but the one thing that I didn't lose each of those times was what I had in my mind, what I had in my head, the root system. So yeah, I made a big mistake with these people. I learned some valuable lessons. And then I started over again. And then another thing happened where I got screwed. Okay. Well, I know not to do that again. In this industry, people don't really think clearly. They don't really think right. Think about it. You're a handyman or you're an AC guy or you're a contractor. And you sign a contract with a homeowner to do $30,000 worth of work, let's say. All right? You don't ask for a deposit. You start using your money. That's illogical. It makes absolutely no sense, yet everybody does it. How is it possible that in order for you to get a credit card for $1,000 with a credit limit of $1,000, they want your income, your social security number, they do a credit check, right? Just for $1,000. And you're giving a $30,000 credit line to somebody you know nothing about.
Yeah.
What's the logic? And then people wonder how they get screwed. Well, how come I can't make it in this industry? Well, that's one example. Is you're giving a $30,000 credit. No, give me the money and I will work with your money. Problem solved. I don't have to check your credit. I don't care what your credit is. Give me $5,000, I'll do $5,000 of the work. Now, if you want the job to go fast, give me 50% or give me 60% and then we'll work faster. Okay, so these are things that they're basically concepts that I'm sharing. So that was just one time when I got screwed. Okay. Now, in between what we're talking about, here's something you want to consider, okay? If you're a young guy in your early 20s or 30s or 40s, even if you're in your 50s, okay? The first thing you have to do is you got to cut your expenses down to like nothing, okay? You have got to cut your bills down to bare bones so that you can survive in this industry. Okay. If I was 20 years old, let me tell you what I would do. And this is advice I've given to people who have taken it and they have become successful. Okay. If I was around 20, 25, getting started, okay, what would I do? The first thing I would do is I would look for a piece of property that's not in the middle of the city, that's a little bit in the outskirts, that's zoned agricultural. You can pick it up fairly inexpensive, like I don't know, like a double wide trailer that's old and it needs to be fixed up. You can pick it up for maybe 60 grand or 70 grand. Okay. You can sometimes get owner financing because nobody wants to buy that. Bank's not going to finance it until it's fixed. So you can usually get owner financing. Now, why do I pick that? Number one, because I now have a place to live. Okay, what's your mortgage payment going to be on a $60,000, $70,000 house? $300?
I'll say less than 1,000 for sure. Less than
Exactly.
trying to.
Right. Yeah. But what do people do? No, they get the maximum house they can afford, and they pay $2,500 or $3,000. Right. Okay. The next thing I would do is I wouldn't buy a brand new truck. I would buy an older vehicle, maybe for $3,000-$4,000. I got to maintain it, but it's going to get me where I need to go. Okay. Now what? Well, I move into the house. I don't. I talk to my parents. They let me borrow the 50 grand, whatever, and I have very, very little overhead. So now what happens? All right. So when I start doing work, I don't have to cover as much overhead. All right. Now I get the first job, and then I get the second job, and then when I have materials left over, they go to the house. Over a period of 2 years, on my weekends and on the evenings, I will work on that house. If I'm slow and I have an employee and I don't have a lot of work for him, I bring him to help me work on the house. 2 years later, the house is finished and it's worth about $180,000 or $200,000. Now I sell the house. I pay off the mortgage of about 50 grand. Now I have $150,000 cash, tax free. Why is it tax free? Because it's very simple. If you stay in a house, it's your homestead for more than 2 years, the federal government recognizes that as your homestead, and you don't have to pay any capital gains tax. How does this all come about? I had an employee about 8 years ago. Ayan, I'm really having a hard time. I'm going through a divorce. I don't know what to do. I need your guidance. I said, look, I'll give you some advice, but you're not going to do it. No, Ayan, I promise I'm going to do it, whatever it is you tell me to do. Okay, this guy was an auto mechanic who came to work with me, and he was working just whatever he could do. I said to him, okay, here's what you're going to do. When is your lease and your apartment? He says, well, it ends in about a month. I said, okay, you're not going to renew your lease. She says, what do you mean I'm not going to renew my lease? He says, no, you're not going to renew your lease. He says, what am I going to do then? He says, well, you see that mobile home that I got that we're working on every once in a while? Take a corner of the mobile home, put an air conditioner in the window. You got a place to go to the bathroom. You got a place to sleep. You got air conditioning. Go ahead and live there, and I won't charge you any rent. Just keep an eye on the property for him. So he does it. Okay, then what I want you to do is I want you to save every penny you can. And he does it. So when he had about $3,000 saved up, I said, okay, you ready? He says, yeah. Okay, now I want you to go buy a trailer, a camper, for about $3 grand. I found one for you. Look over here. So I took him to it, and he bought it for $3 grand. He put it in the back of the house. Now he's got a kitchen, bathroom, air conditioning. He's got everything back of the house. And I said, keep saving your money. Keep saving your money. So he keeps saving his money. Now, rather than being him, think of this as being somebody who's trying to start his business, okay? You don't have a big rent to pay. You just bought a $3,000 camper. Yeah, it's not ideal. But how much money am I saving? Okay, a year later, he's got about $15,000 saved up. I said, okay, Rusty, you ready? He says, yeah. I said, I found a piece of property. The guy wants $15,000. There used to be a trailer there, but they caught on fire, and they're just selling the lot. But it has a septic tank, and it has the power. Put your camper on there. And then what you're going to do is over the next 2 to 3 years, every dollar you make, you're going to build yourself a house. And he did it. Over a period of 3 to 3.5 years, he had no expenses. He was paying no rent. All he had to do was pay the electric bill. No utilities other than that. He had a piece of property where he could park his vehicle, where he could live, And every month he had $2,000 or $3,000 left over, and he used that to buy materials, and he slowly built his house. How does that apply with a guy trying to start in this industry? Get your costs down as low as you can. Why do you need that agricultural zoning? Because nobody gives a damn what you park there. So if you have a trailer, if you got a skid steer, if you got a box van, if you live in an apartment, you can't park that. So now you got to go rent a place to put the equipment, and you got to have a storage for all your tools. If you have an agricultural piece of property cheap like that, nobody gives a damn what you park there. Okay, so now you finish building the house, you take that cash, and then you go on to the next house. And you do something called the BURR system. Okay, what is the BURR system? Okay, or the BURR is like BURR, like printing money. Okay, you take the 150,000, and then you go and you either buy a lot or you buy another handyman house, and then you put that into it and you fix it up. And when you're done, it's worth about 220, 230. You then get what's called a no income verification loan from a bank. They'll give you an investor no income verification loan for 70% of the value of the property. So they don't check your credit, they don't check how much you make a month, because you're providing a rental property that you have rented out for like $1,500 a month. And you get your 150,000 back. So now you got a piece of property with a $150,000 mortgage that has about $60,000 or $70,000 in equity, and you're getting maybe $300-$400 a month extra. So you go to your next one, and then you repeat. You take the 150 grand, you buy a piece of property, you slowly, over the next year or two, you slowly fix it up, and then once you have it done, you get another loan, an investor loan, no income verification. That you don't even have to give them your financial statements or anything. It's simple. They close in like 3 weeks because they know there's plenty of equity. If you do this from the age of 20, 25, 30, by the time you're my age, you've got 20, 30 houses under your belt. You've got a cash flow of $8,000 or $10,000. The first one, the mortgage is about to get paid off, and that's building slow. So first thing you got to do is cut back on your expenses. Stay away from the fancy truck, stay away from the payments so that you can survive. And then eventually when you start making the money, you have to decide, where am I going to put it? Making the money is the easy part. You don't understand that until you've done it. Making the money is easy. It's keeping it. Where do I put it and protect it from a divorce, or from a client that sues me, or from an employee who accidentally ran over somebody's dog, or from a trust that fell over and hurt the neighbor? I mean, how do you protect yourself from all that? It's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. So there's a lot to this, but and I'm being very general, but at least I'm getting the seeds out there to plant into people's minds to, oh, well, maybe I might want to look into that a little more. So making the money, believe me or not, it's actually the easy part, especially once you start growing your bamboo plant. And then it's keeping it that's hard. So to keep my employees busy, I will buy a handyman, a fire damaged house, something that's hard to get a mortgage on that I can get owner financing with, however the cheapest way I can get it. If not, if I have the money, I'll buy a lot and I'll start building a house. If not, maybe a house has a big tree that hit it and it's for sale at a good discount. I'll pick it up and then I'll keep it on the side. And then if we don't have work next week, I'll put my guys to work on it. And that way I keep my good guys. Now, a little secret on how to keep your employees, because that's something that I hear a lot also. Oh, hey, and I teach them how to do this, and then they go and they work for somebody else, and I spent all this time. So, well, the way I keep my employees is very simple. I am constantly teaching them the next step. Okay, so I don't want employees. I don't want people on my payroll. So what I do is, if you come to work for me, let's say I'm starting you at $20 an hour. Okay. After a couple of months, I'm pushing you to open your own business. And I explain to you, listen, the advantages of having your own business is you get tax deductions. You can do this. It'll increase your income. So I sit down and I work with them and I explain it to them. And you can open your own business for like $120 at the local state website. Now you have your own business. Now you can deduct your cell phone. You can deduct your car payment, your insurance payments. That increases your income. So how do I keep my employees? I'm constantly teaching them and helping them to the next step. The best thing that I can do to make more money is teach one of my employees how to open their own business. That's totally opposite of what everyone else does. Nobody wants to teach them the business part because they think, oh, they're going to open their own business. No, I want my guys to open their own business because they hire me as their consultant. The guy starts working for me and then he learns what he needs to learn. He opens his own business. Now he gets a kitchen fire. He doesn't know how to estimate it. He doesn't know how to deal with the insurance company. He doesn't know. So, Ayan, can you help me? I said, okay, fine, no problem. I get 20%. And then I'll do the scope. I'll deal with the insurance company. I'll talk to the owner. You go ahead and do the job. And I get 20% and he gets 80%. And he makes more money in his 80% by using me to help him than if he tried to do it by himself because he doesn't know what he's doing. So he's helping me make money. I'm helping him make money. So if I want to keep my employees, I want to teach them how to open your own business, how to start doing work on the side. I have people that I've helped open their own business, and they'll call me a year later. Hey, and I got this person who's got a 5-unit apartment complex, and I can't handle this. And I don't, can you want it? I said, yeah, I'll take it. So help your employees grow, help them open their own businesses, and then you guide them, and then they work with you. Sometimes you'll team up. I had a job when a hurricane hit, and I had a large project, 36 units, I think it was. I didn't have enough manpower. So I call on these guys. I say, hey, you want to come up here to Panama City? We had a hurricane, and we got a $4.5 million contract. I need about 100 men, and I'll give you 8 of the units. You can do 8 of the units, and I'll give him 5 of the units, and then I'll give him 3 of the units. And then these guys came in, and I sat back and let them do all the work, and I made my percentage on top of it. So I work as a team with these people. But if you're starting out in this industry, I can't stress how important it is to keep your expenses as low as possible. And when you start making money, then you start worrying about how to keep it. How do I protect it? Do I need to make a trust? Do I do a irrevocable trust? Do I do a land trust? How do I, don't worry about that crap until you start making money. Once you start making money, then you'll have the money to pay somebody to teach you how to do that.
Yeah, that's some higher level stuff, but yeah, dude, I think that we've pretty much covered the blueprint from what to do to get started all the way to, once you're making a little bit of money, what you should be looking at as far as keeping it. I think you definitely, even just, I've had conversations with guys pretty similar to yourself, and I've noticed a couple trends as far as the advice that they'll give is, like you said, keep the overhead and the expenses low. Don't go buy the new shiny truck to, play keep up with the Joneses and look like you've got more going on than you maybe do. And then you're probably the second person that I've talked to that said that they encourage their employees to go out and start their own business. And then, whether they want to feed you work or vice versa, and just keeping that relationship going is actually more beneficial to do it that way, which to most people seems like controversial advice, or it seems kind of counterintuitive to encourage your employees to go start their own thing, which would almost, it seems like, directly compete with you, but in reality it's not the case at all, and both people end up doing better for it in the long run, which I think is interesting but very true.
A common mistake some of these AC guys make, because I I've mentored some of them in the past. They'll go and buy and rent a warehouse, and because they need an office, or even roofers, they do the same thing, or even some beginning contractors, they'll go rent a warehouse, and because we need an office for the secretary. No, you don't. Customers don't go to your house, dude. They don't go to your office. If you're a roofer, your client doesn't come to your office. You meet them at their house. If you're renovating a kitchen, if you're replacing an air conditioner, nobody comes to your office. So why do you want to rent an office? If I'm gonna rent, I'm gonna rent it to myself. I'm gonna be the bank. I'm gonna become the bank. So what do? Well, if I need a warehouse, I'm gonna go to my residential lot and I'm gonna build a barn. I've increased the property value. I've got a place to store all our stuff, and I'm paying myself rent. What does everybody else do? Well, they go to some, complex where there's 50 warehouses and they rent a unit. It's illogical to me. I'm talking to you right now from one of my rental properties. I'm in the living room of one of my rental properties. Half of it is rented out to a tenant. I separated it into a duplex, and I'm running this particular office out of that rental property.
Mm.
I could afford a nice office in a nice building, but what do I want to spend that money for? It's illogical. So my company's paying me rent to borrow this space, and then I have a piece of property that's zoned residential, and I have a hay barn that I turn into a big storage, and I put equipment in there, generators, compressors. I don't bother getting a warehouse. I'm my own bank. I worked my way to that point, but I'm just trying to explain the concept of why do I want to pay anybody else for all that crap? Just pay myself. Yeah, I have a box truck that's 26 foot long, and it's got probably $80,000 or $90,000 in tools in it. That's our toolbox. Okay, and that box truck is parked on my property. That's where everybody goes to get the tools. And if we have a big job, we drive it to the job, and everybody has all their tools there. And then when we're done, it goes back to the warehouse, and it's parked on my property. Little things like that is where you make your profit.
Mm.
Thinking along the lines of being your own bank, helping your people grow, helping them become successful. If you've been in this long enough, very, very, very rarely will you have an employee more than 5 or 6 years. They usually burn out after a year or two, and then you got to get a new one. And But if you start teaching them and you start working with them, then they have something to look forward to. They're not just coming to a job; they're coming to an education. It becomes like a career for them, and then you become their mentor and you help them. And the more money they make, the better it is for me. Because eventually they recommend me. And like I have a handyman business. Okay, that's run by my son. Okay, well, why do I have a handyman business? Well, if I'm a contractor and I do insurance work, okay, how do you get insurance work? You do what nobody else does. Everybody goes to Google, everybody goes to Facebook, everybody goes to Neighbors, or they advertise and they send flyers or whatever, right? No, what do? I just wait for my son to call me. Dad, I went to change somebody's sink. It was leaking and the cabinet swelled up. Okay, I'll be right there. $80,000 kitchen cabinet. I just filed an insurance claim for water damage. Dad, somebody needed a roof patched. So I gave him your number. Okay, well, somebody's got to go in there and do the ceilings and the insulation and the flooring that swelled up. So now you got a $70,000 or $80,000 renovation insurance claim. You got to think outside the box. So the handyman company feeds the remediation restoration company. The restoration remediation company feeds the handyman company, because there's small jobs I don't want to deal with. I don't have time for. So I feed them. In this case, it's my son, right? So it could be Bill, the guy who used to work for me 5 years ago, who decided to open his own handyman company. The best thing that could happen for my company is for you to work for me and you open a handyman company. I teach you how to open it. I'll even help you finance your first truck. And I'll let you borrow my equipment. Why? Because you're going to go out there and install ceiling fans and install uh, windows, and then all of a sudden somebody's got a swollen floor because the air conditioner leaked. You guys have air conditioning guys, right?
Mm.
Guys that own an air conditioning, think outside the box. You go into a house and you're going to clean the ducts. Well, why? Well, because the air conditioner, it leaked and it got water on the floor. Well, it swelled up the wood floor. Hello? You're going to go in there and do a $4,000 or $5,000 cleaning job, and you're staring at an $80,000, $90,000 renovation. So these AC guys, they're my best friends. So if you're an AC guy just starting out, do handyman work on the side. And then you go in to fix the AC and the water leaked and it damaged the ceiling because the unit was up in the attic. And then it leaked in the garage, let's say. So now the garage ceiling needs to be replaced. Well, you just signed a $4,000 air conditioning repair, but you got a $20,000 drywall, painting, plastering, baseboards. That's how you can expand your business very simply. And then you feed off of each other. You're a plumbing guy. Great. You call me. We're going to be best friends. Why? Because you're going to go in and you're going to unclog somebody's toilet that overflowed. And then you're going to say, by the way, this is all contaminated black water. You really need to have a professional deal with this because that sewage got up underneath your cabinet and it's up underneath your flooring and it got into the room next door. This guy will work with your insurance company and that's my best friend. So who do you think's going to do that job? And who do you think's going to do my other plumbing jobs? Him. Because he's sending me work. This is what I'm talking about. That you need to have that type of a relationship. My best friends are plumbers, electricians, roofers. You know, roofers leave so much money on the table. It's not even funny. They go in and they replace a roof or they patch a roof for $15,000 to $20,000, and there's $40,000 worth of interior restoration that they left behind. What are you doing? Right? There is so much work out there, but you have to think outside the box, and you got to, oh, you know what? Yeah, he's right. That does make sense. So I don't have time to do the interior, so I make friends with a contractor that does interiors. I say, hey, I got another one for you. Hey, I really appreciate that. I'm going to make sure you do all my roofs. Or, thank you for the referral. Here's $1,000. Take your family to dinner. That's how this works. There's all kinds of ways of making it in this industry. You have to think outside the box. You have to find a mentor. You have to work every day. Again, the 1%, the bamboo. It's all of this. I'll give you guys some books so you can read that will, and after we're done with our podcast, that will help you open your eyes on some of this stuff. One of the best books you could possibly read in the trades is called The E-Myth Contractor. The E-Myth Contractor is a book that will teach you what you're missing, why you can't scale your company. What is it that's keeping me from getting to the next step? That book will teach you what you need to do. It's called The E-Myth Contractor. I don't remember the name of the guy. I've read the book 3 or 4 times. First time I read it was maybe 20 years ago. And it opened my mind to a lot of, that makes sense. So The E-Myth Contractor is a great book for somebody who's wanting to scale, whether you're a large company or even a beginner. It basically teaches you how to create systems and automate so that it doesn't depend on you. The next book I would recommend is The Millionaire Next Door or The Millionaire Mind. They're pretty much written by the same guy. The Millionaire Mind, what is that about? When you're driving out in the street and you see a guy with a Rolex or you see him with a Mercedes, those people are not millionaires. Those people are in debt. The real millionaires, it's people like us who don't wear the Rolexes, who don't have the brand new trucks, who are blue collar. This industry, guys, if you don't know it by now, this industry, Anybody who's in this industry over the next 15 to 20 years, you're gonna be millionaires, guaranteed. If you open a simple handyman company, you will be millionaires within 15 to 20 years. I promise you. Oh, what's he talking about? Well, the baby boomers ran this country. The baby boomers have been retiring. For every 7 baby boomers that retire, 2 people come to replace them. So if you're a plumber, you're going to be a millionaire within the next 10 to 15 years because there's so much demand. All the baby boomers are retiring. They don't want to fix their toilets. They don't want to paint their office. They don't want to repair their roof. They've got money. And they can't find anybody reputable to do it. The people in the trades, my son, he charges $150 an hour. That's what he averages. $150 an hour as a handyman. Changing your floor, replacing a window, patching a ceiling, patching a roof. $150 an hour he charges. That's what he averages. Now, he doesn't say, I charge you $150 an hour. He says, I'm going to replace your soffit for $700. I'm going to change out your toilet for $280. I'm going to replace your ceiling fan for $230. But he'll knock out a ceiling fan and the toilet and the soffit in a day, and that's $1,500 that he made that day. People don't make that. Normal people don't make that.
No.
Right?
No.
Well, the people in the trades are the millionaires of tomorrow. I promise you. Because there's nobody replacing them. The electricians. Electricians make really good money. Well, if you own the company, you'll make really good money because of the demand. And it's going to be like that. Statistically, it's going to continue for the next 15 years. So if you're in the trades right now, do not despair. Just find the niche, get the support, get a little bit of advice, get the counseling, get the mentoring, and nothing will get you quicker to where you want to be faster than a good mentor. A good mentor will save you so much grief. I go on Facebook sometimes and somebody will say, oh, I got this happen and that happened. And I'll say, hey, look, this is what you do. Ping, 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 ping. And I'll get an email like a month later. I can't believe it, man. You saved me. Oh my God. I never thought to do that. And it was free advice. Nothing will help you more than that. The next book, The Richest Man in Babylon. That's like the Bible. I keep that literally, I keep that next to my bed. That's my Bible, The Richest Man in Babylon. What does that deal with? It teaches you the laws of money, the rules of money. Memorize them. Read that book. Now, the way I tell people to read the book is you get a highlighter, and then you start reading the book, and every time you see an important point, you highlight it with the yellow marker. And then you continue. When you're finished reading the book, you set it down for a couple of weeks. Then you come back to read it, but you only read the yellow stuff. You don't have to read the whole book again. You can read the whole book in like 20 minutes. Every time that I'm going to make a big decision, like I'm going to buy a new house or another investment, or maybe I'm going to open a new business or something, I read that book. I go back to it and I read those yellow marks. And those are the rules of money. One of the rules is don't go to a brick mason for advice on gold, which is a common mistake a lot of these guys in the industry make. Again, let's say an AC guy, okay? He'll go and he'll ask another AC guy who is at the same level he's at, you know, how do I make this contract up to... No. The other guy is trying to figure out AC work as it is. Now, if you want some advice on the contract, you go to an attorney because the attorney deals with contracts. You don't go to another AC guy and what to put in your contract. So you don't go to the brick mason for advice on gold. If I want advice on gold, I'm going to go to the jeweler. Say, what can you tell me about gold? Right? So if I want to grow my business, what are you doing talking to a guy who's never own the business. What are you doing reading a book from some guy who's never been in the trades and doesn't understand the trades? If I want to learn how to protect myself and be able to get paid, if somebody doesn't pay me, how do I lien the property? Well, you got to go to an attorney for that one. Don't go to Facebook and say, "Oh, this guy didn't pay me." Everybody's going to say, "Oh, put a lien on the property." It's a little more complicated than that. Is it? You don't have any idea that it's a little more complicated than that. So, the E-Myth Contractor, the Millionaire Next Door, and the Richest Man in Babylon. And for the beginners, the people who are struggling right now, read the book "Who Moved My Cheese?" And these are small books. "Move My Cheese," you could probably read it in 4 or 5 hours, but the message, it will stay with you. Who moved my cheese? In other words, what happened to the money? How can I find work? So it's a story of 4 mice, and then it tells you how each mice reacts to the situation. They're in a maze, and they're eating this cheese, and they're all nice and happy, and all of a sudden the cheese runs out. Okay? Well, 2 of the mice say, "Well, I'm going to just sit here and wait for the cheese to come back." Well, 2 of the mice say, "Hell no, I'm going to go look for more cheese." And then in each mouse, you're gonna kind of see a little bit of yourself, and it'll help you understand the decisions you need to make to grow your company, and what to do. I was mentoring a guy last week. And I know what I'm doing. I'm really, I just can't seem to find work. So I asked him. I said, "Well, where do you live?" He said, "Well, I live in Montana." I said, "Okay, well, what city do you live in?" I said, "Well, I don't remember where he told me. Population was like 8,000. I said, "Well, dude, you got a decision to make. Why don't you come to Central Florida, where there's about 20 million people? Leave that $8,000 community. You got to make a decision. It's a decision you got to make. You want to be successful. You want to. I'm sorry, you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to move." "Well, but I love it." "Okay, well then, what are you asking me for? Just stay there and keep doing what you've been doing for the past 5 years, or pick up and go. If the business isn't where you're at, find it. It's really that simple. It really is."
Yeah.
But anyway, those are some great books to read and continue on. Sometime in the future, if we talk again, I can refer some other books. But for the beginner, man, water that plant, fertilize that plant every day. 1%, the 1% rule. The other rule is the 80%, the Pareto principle. If anybody's never heard of it, it's called the Pareto principle.
Yep.
80% of what you do in a day makes 20% of the money that you make. 20% of what you do in a day makes 80%. What does that mean? It means that if I make $500 an hour doing estimates, why am I swinging a hammer? If you're the owner of the company, what the hell are you doing hanging drywall? If you want to hang drywall, come work for me. I'll give you all the drywall to hang. But if you want to have a business, you got to start thinking like a businessman. You got to start being a businessman. You got to start making businesses. Oh, how you do it? Well, one step at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Okay. So that's how you make your business successful. One bite at a time. You can't take on the elephant at one time. You can't. Nobody can eat an elephant in one day. But if you take one bite at a time and you eat a pound or 2 a day, you're going to eat that elephant in the next 4 or 5 years. That elephant is skin and bones. It's just nothing but bones. That's how business is. It's not going to happen in a week. It's not going to happen in a month. But if you keep pushing, it'll happen. Constantly educate yourself, constantly growing. I started out installing ceiling fans. I moved to drywall. Then I moved to interiors. Then I moved to general contracting. Then I moved to government contracting. Then I moved. And I'm constantly changing over the decades. I've been 45 years in the industry. I figure I have another 20 to go. I'm thinking I'm going to probably make it to 84, 85. If I make it, great. But sooner or later, you're going to make it, and you'll find your niche. It'll find you.
Absolutely. You just got to stick it out long enough for the circumstance to happen and for it to line up.
But you got to keep watering it, dude. You have to keep watering it every day. Water and fertilizer, and you'll get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. Just keep pushing. Keep pushing. And if you hit a brick wall, try to find a good mentor. And then, hey, what do you recommend about this? How can I do that? And I need to throw one final thing in there.
Sure.
Be very careful about who you marry. You have to have the right partner. I mean, if you're thinking, man, yeah, Ayan makes a lot of sense, I think I'm going to go find me a handyman house and I'm going to move into it and I'm going to just fix it up over the next 2 years. But your girlfriend or your wife is like, she wants a fancy dress and she wants a nice car and she wants that's not a good partner for you.
Yeah.
But if she's willing to say, you know what, you're right, let's do it, let's do this together. I got your back, and yeah, I'm willing to give up. You know what, my $30,000 Camry, we're paying $700 a month for. You're right, let's sell it, and I can get to work and back with a $3,000 Civic. It's enough to get me back to work. You just eliminated $30,000 debt. She's agreeing with you, and that's your best mentor or advisor is your spouse. You got to have the right one. If all they want is the pretty nails and the lipstick and let's go on vacations, that's
Yeah.
not the right person, buddy. You can think it is, but it's going to hold you back. But if she's the farm girl that gets out there with the pick and helps you plant the plants and helps you clean the truck, and that's a gold mine right there, because they'll watch your back, and when the going gets tough, they'll be there for you. And in the end, that's who's going to be there with you. Not your friends, not your contractor friends, not your attorney friends. Not in the end, that's going to be the person that's going to be there with you. And that person is entitled to share in the profits and in the gains, and they will. But if you have a relationship and that's not how they think, you got to really think about that, because it could be holding you back. I remember one guy years ago. He was struggling and struggling, and his wife, she had a damn Mercedes, and he was paying like $1,300 a month for her Mercedes. Well, I got to take care of my wife. I said, dude, you're not making any money because you're supporting. She would get like $800 haircuts or $300 nail and foot jobs. I said, dude, what are you doing? Well, I don't want to lose my wife. I said, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to make it. You don't have the right partner. And then if it's not your wife, if you are in a partnership, quick points, never do 50-50 in a business. Somebody always has to be 51%. So you might be able to share the profits 50-50, but somebody has to own 51% of the company in order to survive. If you have 50-50 and then you don't have an agreement, you have a stalemate, nothing happens. And then if you have to break up the partnership, as much as it hurts, it's a very simple way to break up a partnership. All you do is you say this: okay, my partner, here's what we're going to do. You name the price, or I name the price. Whoever names the price, that's the price. The other person gets to choose to pay for it or to be paid. So let's say you got an AC company and you have $100,000 in assets, and you have $500,000 a year in customers, and you decide you want to separate the business because you want to go on your own. Okay, either you name the price or I name the price. Well, let's see, there's $100,000 in assets and there's $500,000. So I'm thinking, maybe it's worth 200 grand. Okay, 200 grand. Now he gets to pick. I give him 200 grand, or he buys me out and I get 200 grand. That's how you break up a relationship. Simple. So if you have a situation, which I've seen that a lot, where people don't have enough confidence in themselves and they feel intimidated, so they feel that they can't do something unless they have a partner. So they'll get into a partnership, and then 2-3 years later they realize this ain't working. I'm doing all the work, and this guy here is shit. You know. So that's how you break up the partnership. I'm usually against partnerships as far as ownership. I'll partner with you and give you a percentage of a project. Let's say I have a $500,000 renovation, and I really don't have time to deal with it. I'm not going to let it go by. I'll say, hey, listen, I'll give it to you for $460,000. I don't want any phone calls. If I get any phone calls, the deal's off. So we're partners. But you got your business, I got my business, I get my cut, you get your cut, everybody's happy, we do another deal. But going in to do the house together, it ain't gonna work. In my experience, partnerships don't work. Deals work, but not 50-50 ownership. That doesn't work. So always, I know it's hard to understand, but I've never seen a partnership that worked. Literally in this industry, they've always broken up because of things like that.
Yeah, been there, done that myself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I know this dragged on, but I was just trying to give you guys as much as I can.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Really appreciate the time and the wisdom, man. You've laid out a lot of things that have been very helpful and fun for me to listen to myself, and I'm sure a lot of people that are going to watch this later on will take a lot from it as well.
I'm going to share one final thing, and because I can go on for hours, trust me. But just remember this: every day, every morning, in the savannah in Africa, the moment the sun comes up, at first light, the slowest running gazelle opens his eyes. And the first thing that comes to his mind is, today, I have to run faster than the fastest lion. Because if I don't, I'm going to get eaten. But at the same time that the gazelle opens his eyes, at first light, the slowest running lion opens his eyes. The first thing that comes to his mind is, today, I have to run faster than the slowest gazelle. Because if I don't, I'm going to starve to death. What's the moral of the story? Tomorrow morning when you get up, you better get running. Because if you don't run, you're going to get eaten alive by people like me. And if you don't run, you're going to starve to death because of people like me. So you guys have to make a decision of which lion you want to be. Do you want to be the lion that lives in the zoo, in the cage, and gets his meat every day and his water, and all he does is he stays there in the cage, and he receives that check every Friday, that paycheck, working for his employer? Yeah, there's a lot of security there. Or do you want to be the lion that lives in the savannah, that has to find his own food, has to find the water, but he's free to roam the world? I chose 45 years ago that I was not going to be the lion in the cage. And it was hard as hell. Sometimes I was hungry, sometimes I was thirsty, but I had to move my ass to get to where I got to get to. So either you're going to be an employee, or you're going to let your customers run your business, or your partners run your business, or whatever, or you're going to do whatever you have to do to get around and survive. Okay, so I just wanted to share those, again, concepts to give you food for thought.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure that we take all the books and stuff that you mentioned. We'll have links to those. Why don't you tell people where they can find you at, and we'll make sure to get this from you too. We'll put them in the description below this video when it gets published.
Actually,
all your information if you want.
I'm about to open a YouTube channel within the next week or two.
Cool.
It's called the the nation's house doctor. And basically it's gonna just be a weekly video on like how do you deal with mold, how do you deal with a fire damaged house. It's going to be geared for two different markets. One is going to be homeowners, because they get screwed left and right every day. Every day. Just go on Facebook and you'll see it. And it's also going to be geared for contractors that that I'm going to be talking about in more detail how I do work without giving an estimate. Things that you want to put in your contract that will protect you, that you never thought about, that until the incident happens, you don't know. And also, if you're wanting to open a business, what steps you want to do. And I'll also be answering questions. So people that put comments, I'll do a video on it. And on occasion, I'm going to bring in people that make me look like a beggar. People that are really successful, and see what advice they give us. But yeah, it's called the Nation's House Doctor. My email is ayan@empmrc.com. If somebody wants to send me an email, and if they have a question, I will respond, time permitting. If I'm busy, if I got to meet a client, or if I'm going to do a podcast or something, I don't have time. So I may not respond that very day, but eventually I'll respond within a few days, or maybe I'm traveling or something. Because I'm a firm believer in giving back. I've been there, done that. And I always dedicate a certain amount of my time to give back because it keeps me humble. So I'll throw you a rope. Like I tell people, I'll throw you a rope, but I'm not going to pull you up. So you have a problem, you want to ask me a question, I'll be more than happy to answer. I'll throw you the rope, but you're going to have to pull yourself up.
Yep.
And it's pretty much the way life is in general. But yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to me, they can do it that way, and I'll respond. The channel's going to release in the next week or two. I got to just do a couple of initial recordings to get it started.
Sure.
And yeah, but anybody, whether you're an AC guy or GC or whatever, if you have a question, and if I can't answer it, I'll refer you a book, or I'll refer somewhere else where you can get the answer. All right?
Cool. Right on. Well, by the time we get this all edited and chopped up and ready to publish, you'll probably have your channel live by then. So we'll make sure we get the link for that from you as well, and we'll put that
Thank you.
somewhere people can find it down below. Cool.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right on.
Yeah, send me a copy of it. I'd like to have it in my file.
Yeah.
And if I
Absolutely.
could ever be of service in the future, reach out, and I'll be happy to if you have something more specific you want answers on or whatever, and you don't want me to blab, you want more specific answers, I'll answer within my ability.
Perfect. Awesome.